Hey guys, welcome back again. So some sad news. My hard drive of almost 10 years is dying or pretty much dead. Seeing that Windows won't recognize it anymore. And yeah, it sucks. I am very heartbroken right now, but I think I might be able to save the files, seeing that I was able to, get it recognized by using a partition tool. But just not to risk it anymore, I just decide to wait until my new hard drive gets here, and I will just pretty much clone it. But for the moment, it took me about 2 hours to copy the tutorial to a flash drive, so I know it's just a couple more a couple more times before it stops working. So yeah, but for this tutorial here, we're just going to go over the saving of the material colors and the attachments. So we're just going to go over the functions that we use and how we use them. So this function here just saves the material with the color, and this one right here loads them back to the weapon. Okay, so let's go over these. The first thing we're going to want to do, okay, that's what messed up my hard drive the last time. Kept on saving, autosave going, all my shaders were on the hard drive, recording, streaming the recording to all of that was happening at the same time. So I guess that's what caused it. But yeah, so let's start. First thing we're going to want to do is create some struct, and what we're going to want to create is our save material. Okay, and we're just going to have material interface, an array, and disregard this one. We're going to have a linear color. That's an array, and it's going to be called color array. So these two right here. Okay, I think I could just go ahead and delete that. So these two right there. And we're going to be doing the attachments too, so let's just do one for the attachments, and that's going to be attachments, and it's going to be array of name. Okay, now to get this started, let's start with the save. Now for the save, we're just going to create a custom event, and we're going to have an input for our weapon, a weapon struct. Okay, all right, now let's create this variable here, which is going to be an array map, and it's going to have string as the key and our save material as the value. So create a variable, mine this save material here. All right, and once you get that done, let's go ahead and create this macro here, and this macro is just going to get our material colors from our current weapon, get the color of the current materials. Okay, so we're going here, and for this we're going to have a variable, an array, which is linear color. So let's create a variable called new mat color, and it's going to be an array, and the variable type is going to be linear color. All right, once you get that done, the macro should have an input, an execution pin for the input, and another execution pin for the output. Okay, now we're going to get that new color variable. We're going to clear it, make sure it's clear, and then we're going to get our weapon and get all materials. And I think we okay, We probably could wrap that in a macro too, but so get all materials, and for each material we're gonna get the weapon, get the current weapon, and get the weapon mesh. Then we're gonna create a dynamic material instance, and then we're gonna get vector parameter, and we're gonna get the base color. Okay, and that's what my parameter is called. Yours might be called something else. Mine's is the base color, and that's just the color of the weapon. And for each of that, we're gonna get our new color variable. Okay, and then we're gonna add. So for every material that's on our weapon, you know, let's say our weapon have 4 material slots. It's gonna get all those material slots, and it's going to create a dynamic material of the material in those slots. Then it's going to get the base color, the current base color of that material in that slot, and it's going to add it to the new material available or variable. Now once that is complete, once it completes this loop, we want to get our material and have it be the output for the macro. Okay, so one more time. We clear our new color array, then we get our weapons materials, all the material that's on the weapon, all the slots, and for each slot we create a dynamic material and get that the vector parameter, which is the color, and then we just add that color to our array. And once that is complete, once this array has all the slots in it, we're gonna get this color and have it be our macro output. Okay, now once that is done, let's go ahead and create another variable. I don't know if we did this already, but yeah, I think we did. So we're going to get our save material variable here, and then we're going to add. Okay, what we're going to add is the current name of the weapon. Okay, now this map here, it could also be our weapon struct, but I just went ahead and made it a string so we could get the name, just in case, you know, on the real one should it be a bit more specific, I guess. But I think just having the weapon data in there instead of a string should work, but just to get rid of this right here. But once we add, now we're going to get our we're going to drag out, because remember this is our material structure that we created. We're going to drag out from there, and then we're going to get the color from this array here, this macro here, get the output from the color, and then we're going to just stick it in there and set our color to that color. And the material, as I thought, yep, the material, let's create this macro here, which just get all the material from the current weapon. This is what this macro does. Okay, so it's our current weapon, current preview weapon, and the weapon mesh, and get all materials, and then have that, put that out in our macro. Remember, this current weapon here is the current weapon that gets spawned inside of the customization window. This is not the player current weapon that's spawned inside the world. So don't do the player get current weapon if you're doing that. Okay. Now I think here we can also do the get parts instead of this right here. Figured I had that macro. Okay, but you know, we're gonna, after we create that get parts macro, we can just stick it in there. So now this variable, this map here has a new entry, which is this weapon here, and in that entry the value for that weapon is our save material, which saves you know, material and the current color. Okay, now to load that, we're gonna go create a new event. Okay, same thing, it has an input. Okay, we're gonna get that save material. Now we're gonna find that weapon now in that array map, and then we're gonna get the save material. Now from that save material, for each material we have in there, we're gonna have a for each loop. Say for each material we want to set the material. Okay, and we're just going to drag from here into the material and drag from the index to the index. Okay, and the material is going to be our set weapon material here. I made a macro for it, but it's just your current weapon and your weapon, the weapon mesh. Okay, once that is done, once you set that material, you want to also get that weapon again, that weapon mesh, and you want to create a dynamic material. Okay, and this is all within this loop right here. Once you create that dynamic material, you want to set the color value, and the color you're going to set it to is, we're going to drag out from color here. Okay, and you probably, you know, you may want to save these into little variables before, so you won't have to do all this, but you want to drag out from the color, from the material we just the material array we just looked in. We want to drag out from the color, and we want to get, and the color, the index we want to get is, for every index this goes through right here, whenever this loop goes through it push out an index. So the first index is 0. So once it's set the material to material 0, it's going to create a dynamic material from that material. Okay, and then it's going to go in this array, and it's going to find the color at the index 0 and get that color, and it's going to set it to our new color. So it's going to set the material to that color. And remember, we got this color from our save up here. Okay, see, we saved the color here from our current material. All right, and that should be for loading the material. So you would pretty much want to call this, I call the save material every time I click on a material. So let's go here. So I have it at the random color button. Okay, so whenever I you know, hit the random color or change color button, at the end of it I have my save material. Okay, and don't worry about any of these. You just really need to have a weapon struct coming through. Okay, and my save material comes here, and it's just the variable the function I created earlier. Okay, which if I click on it, you see it goes right here. So I call that in the random color. So every time I change color, it just automatically saves it. You could just have a save button somewhere down here to just save it when you're done, and just call that function. But I have it there. I also to load those materials, I have that where, so in my attachment slot here, so whenever we hover this button, I just have it set new material. So set new material is actually this here, but set new material you know. And you don't really have to have you could actually call this from there. I just, you know, have these here hooked to another event, but you could actually just call these. So whenever I hover that button on the hover weapon, you know, it does all these other things. You know, these are something else that we're going to be working on, but it does all that, and then it just sets the color. Okay. All right. Now for the attachments, to save the attachments, what we're going to do here is let's go on our save. Okay. I have a save attachment here, an event or function, wherever you want to put this, and we're just going to get our, you know, current weapon, the weapon data, and we're getting the name from the weapon data. Where we're going to put this name is we're going to create an array map similar to our material. Okay. And it's going to have a string as the key, and the save attachment struct that we created as the value. Now we're going to get that variable, that array map, and we're going to add just like how we did the color. We're going to add. Now the value that we're going to add, you know, to this struct is this macro. So create this macro here. We're going to create a macro called get all attachments. Okay, and get all attachments is just going to you know, pretty much get the current weapon and get all the attachments that are, you know, attached to it. Okay, and that's inside of a macro. You could have it inside of a macro, or you could just, you know, drag out here. You know, have it in a macro makes it a little bit more cleaner. Okay, and then you're just gonna set, you know, the value coming out here to that attachment. So now in this array map, we this weapon, whatever this weapon is, let's say it's our, you know, our rattlesnake weapon. You know, it's gonna say rattlesnake. And all the attachments that's on rattlesnake right now, we're going to save it to this struct. Okay. Once that's done, to get those attachments. All right. We're going to get that variable again. Then we're going to find. What we're going to find is the name. And here you can have it be you know, weapon data. Same thing with the color, or, you know, you could pretty much still just drag out from the current preview weapon, you know, and get the weapon data. You know, it's the same thing. Only difference is whenever you call this here, it's going to be looking for this value. So if I go over here to my weapon, whenever I hover, you know, this is my hover button. It just, you know, I'm checking which screen am I on, which I have two scenes, so just checking which scene I'm on. And once I'm on that scene, whatever, it checks, it gets the attachments, and it just gets the item data. Okay, so whenever I hover over this button gives me an item data of, you know, whatever the weapon is, and pretty much that's the weapon data, and it comes in here. But at the same time, whichever button I'm hovering over here, whichever button I'm hovering, it's still going to be my current weapon. Okay, if you get it. So I could still drag out and get the weapon data from there. And after I find that weapon in this array map, I get the attachment struct, and for each attachment that's in there, I'm gonna get that current weapon. See, same current weapon, preview weapon here, and I'm just gonna call the same spawn attachment. And this, you know, spawn attachment you use anytime you want to spawn an attachment to the weapon. And since it's in a loop, however much weapon attachments are in this array here, that's all the attachment that is gonna put on. Okay, so get attachments. Okay, and this is saving it. Now, where would you put this? As you can see, I have my get attachments on the hover button. So whenever I hover, and also whenever I click, let me just get rid of this. Also, whenever I click on that, so if I decided I want to select this, it's gonna, you know, get all the attachments. It's gonna, you know, do this, and it's gonna add it to the current weapon. So whenever I, you know, go over to the other screen, it's gonna already have that weapon. So let's take a look at that, see how that works. Let's get our rattlesnake. So I have a save button here that does this, and that saves the attachment. So you could go ahead and we're gonna go over that in a second, but I hit my save button. Okay, and as you can see, whenever I hover over the rattlesnake, it just gets all it goes back into this where is it, into this variable here, that array map, and it says you know, this current weapon that I have, I want you to find it, and then I want you to get all the attachments, and then I want you to spawn. Okay, so we always have, and if we click on it again, it's going to do the same thing, and it's going to spawn that weapon attachment right there. Okay, same thing with the change color. Select our color, we go back, and boom, same thing. We click on it, and it's there. Okay, so let's see, let's go to our color widget here, or our material widget that we have. So whenever we click on that material, we also want to save that material. Okay, there's so much going on here. All right, so remember in our material widget, okay, whenever we click that button, right after we do this right here, what we're going to want to do is this, and we could just break this right here. So whenever we click that button, we want to save that material. Okay, and the reason why I have the save material on this button is just, you know, just so I won't have to create another save button you know, so whenever I just click on the material, I just know that's the material I want my weapon to have, you know. And if I change the color with the random color also, remember, calls the save material. Okay. All right. So remember, this is the material widget. All right. It's the weapon slot. So we call a get attachment here. And I think that's pretty much it. So that's it for the attachments. So to go over this one more time, let's go back over to our color. To save our material's current color, we created an event that has weapon struct as the input, and the weapon struct here is coming from our current weapon data, and we get the name. We created this array map here that has a string as the key and our save material struct as the value. We add our current weapon name and the values for our save material. We went ahead and get all the color from our current weapon, the current material, and we add all those color to an array, and then we get that array, we output it here so we could receive it or set our save material colors to that array of color. Okay, and our material is pretty much coming from our current weapon and our weapon mesh, so we're getting all the material from our current weapon mesh. Okay, then we load that back up with an event or a function, and we get that save material struct. We find that current weapon that we're on, then we just grab off from our save material struct here and just get all the materials that's on there and set our current weapon mesh, which is our weapon mesh we have. We're going to set each slot to this new materials that we're getting from this array here. And then we create a dynamic material instance that we use to set the new color to the colors coming from this array. And how we find these colors, every time it goes through this array, it spits out an index, and we just grab that index and we find it in our color array. And then we just set it here. Okay, and that's for our material and colors. For our attachments to save, we also created an array map with a string value and our save attachments. Now, if you want to just have one big save button to save the attachments and the colors, you would probably want to add this attachment, or just, you know, in your material struct, you want to just add the attachment and a name array for the attachment. Like, you know, instead of just having this struct here, you just add one more. You know, if you want to, and that's if you just want to save all at once. But since we're doing a separate here, we have the attachment having its own struct, which is an array of names. Okay, so once we create this material, this variable right here, we're going to add, the name we're going to add is our current weapon name, and we're going to get all the attachments from our current weapon, and then we're just going to add it to that array. And with these structs right here, you could actually, you know, it makes it a bit easier to you know, when you create your save game blueprints, you know, a little bit easier for you to get to all the weapons and stuff like that, you know, save and load stuff. Okay, once that is done, as you can see, my save button here, I have a save button. So where's that screen? So my attachments don't get saved until I click this button. So whenever I click this button here, it's going to go in here and call the save attachment, which is just going to pretty much get all the current attachment that's on the weapon and save it to our array map here. Okay, it's I used to have it where whenever I you know, select an attachment to add to the weapon, I'm trying to find my but whenever I select let's check it out. So I used to have it whenever I would click this button here, the attachment will automatically get saved. Okay, but now unless I click this button, see if I go back, it's no thing there. But let's go back here, go back, click save. As you can see, we have a weapon there. Let's go on the barrel. Rare. I didn't set up the camera view for this one yet. Still haven't. You know, and save. As you can see, it has all the stuff right there. And I think we could just go in here and change some colors. And we don't have to hit the save button here for the colors, because remember, whenever we click on one of these buttons here, it automatically saves, and whenever we hit the random color, it also automatically saves. Okay, so we added our save material colors to these buttons here. Okay, so we go back, material should be that color. And that should be it. So next we will be working on pretty much now whenever we click on, you know, exit the screen, our new weapon, it's going to be that. Okay, all right.